Please wait for the website stream to go live.
We are now connected to YouTube.
We are live now on the website.
All righty. Well, good evening, everyone. I am Queensborough President Donovan Richards, also joined by our Deputy Borough President, Rhonda Bender. I want to welcome everyone to our second virtual ranked choice voting training, where our goal is to ensure that Queens residents are fully informed when filling out their ballots. And I want to thank all of our panelists today who've done a phenomenal job. I think we had over 100 people at the last training, and I think tonight we'll probably do very similar. So just want to thank you for attending and thank everybody who's helped put this together. Listen, we are in the midst of early voting for the first ranked choice voting election right here in what of the borough than Queens. So we are making history right now in Queens. And one is a special election for New York City Council District 24, which we're undergoing now. The other special election will be for my former council seat, Council District 31 in Queens, which is set for February 23rd. So if you're a former constituent, February 23rd is where you will replace me. And once again, early voting has already started in District 24 as we speak. You can find upcoming election dates and deadlines at voting.nyc. This training is being live streamed on the webpage of the Office of the Queensborough President at www.queensbp.org. Today, we are joined by Dr. Saeed, once again, our Chair and Executive Director of New York City Civic Engagement Commission. So thank you again, Madam Chair, for being here. And Ali Swatek, the Director of Policy and Research at the New York City Campaign Finance Board, who just loves doing these all day and every day. I'm excited about what we will achieve for Queens and all New Yorkers through ranked choice voting, which was passed with 73.5% voter support. Happy to say I was an early supporter. New York City will be using ranked choice voting in primary and special elections. For local offices, voters can rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference instead of just choosing one, and can still vote for just one candidate if preferred. So once again, you can still vote for one candidate if you prefer that. New York City will use ranked choice voting in primary and special elections for local offices only, so such as mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and city council. Ranked choice voting promotes majority support, discourages negative campaigning. If you're a negative campaigner, shame on you, and promotes reflective representation increases participation from military and voters overseas. To see how you should fill out your ballot, you can visit nyccfb.info/nyc/votes/ranked choice voting/. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I'm looking forward to the presentation. And we will start with remarks from Dr. Saeed. I am leaving you all in some really capable hands today because I have another endeavor. So our Deputy Borough President will take over from here for me. So I want to welcome her. And once again, thank you, Dr. Saeed, for being here again. And thank you for your leadership at this huge undertaking that you're currently up against. So thank you so much. And we'll go to you for remarks.
Thank you so much, Borough President. And I want to just welcome everybody today to the ranked choice voting training. And as the Borough President said, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Dr. Saeed, and I'm the Chair and Executive Director of the New York City Civic Engagement Commission, and I'll be moderating today's event. And it is really an honor to be partnering with the Queensborough President's Office and the New York City Campaign Finance Board and DemocracyNYC on this program. And as you all know, the CEC is a relatively new city agency that was formed to promote civic participation and enhance civic trust in New York City. And we believe, like all of our partners, that New Yorkers should have the access, knowledge, and confidence to engage fully with their government, in their communities, and in elections. And in partnership with the borough presidents, the Civic Engagement Commission is charged with supporting community boards. So we're really excited to be here today on this training that is specifically focused on community board members and as well as the general public on ranked choice voting. So I want to thank all the board chairs, district managers, and members who are here joining us today. And the borough president just covered some of the advantages of ranked choice voting, including, just expanding participation in our electoral system, disincentivizing negative campaigning, encouraging coalition building, both among candidates as well as the public and voters and groups of people. And I think this is a really great opportunity, particularly in a time of increased polarization, for us to learn more and take advantage of the benefits of ranked choice voting in this upcoming election season. So as we all know, Queens is the most diverse county in the country. And as was just mentioned, you've played a historic role really in using ranked choice voting because you're the first borough to do so. And we all know early voting opened this past Saturday and will continue until the 31st. So we want you to help us spread the word about this, about the training, content, the material you learned here today. And I want to also now turn to introducing our partner, the Campaign Finance Board. As you know, the CFB is charged with administering the campaign finance system and also responsible for voter education. And they've launched an amazing Train the Trainer program to help educate New Yorkers about ranked choice voting and to empower us to share this information with our neighbors. So I'd like to welcome Allie from the CFB to help educate us and answer questions about ranked choice voting. So we're going to ask you to hold your questions until the end of the presentation. You can also type them into the chat for us afterwards. So I'm going to give it over to you, Allie. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Dr. Saeed. Thank you so much to the Borough President's Office and Borough President Richards for inviting me. I'm really excited to present to you all. And lastly, thank you to DemocracyNYC for their partnership in promoting this event as well. It's really been all hands on deck, and the Borough President wasn't joking that I talk about ranked choice voting pretty much every hour of the day. So I'm here to talk to all of you guys, and I'm really excited. I do ask that if you have questions as the presentation is ongoing to just feel free to type them in the Q&A box and I can circle back and answer them live. Or if anybody else who's a panelist knows the answer and would like to answer, go for it. At this point, I think we're all kind of experts. I'm gonna post to, I think this will post to everybody in the chat. Just my contact information, if you are part of an organization who wants to partner with us on a voter-facing training, we are more than willing to do that. Please don't hesitate to reach out, as well as a couple of links to, and it looks like two of those didn't sync up, but a couple links to some of the websites that I'm going to talk about at the end, just so that you guys have them right up front here. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and can everybody see my screen? Just one person giving a thumbs up. All right, cool. All right, so Dr. Saeed gave us a tremendous introduction, way better than I could have done, but she did point out that the Campaign Finance Board is in charge of conducting voter education and outreach, introducing ranked choice voting to New Yorkers. So that's why I'm here talking to you. And Together with our partners and volunteers, the CFB and NYC Votes works to inform all New Yorkers ahead of elections. So we don't just do it related to ranked choice voting, we do it every year for federal and state races, primaries, generals, and specials. And we also engage underrepresented communities through outreach initiatives. Like I said earlier, just to introduce myself a little bit more, my name is Ali Swadek. I'm the Director of Policy and Research at the Campaign Finance Board. I rejoined the CFB in January. I originally worked at the Candidate Services Unit during the 2013 election. So the last time we elected a new mayor, and now I'm back. And before I worked for the CFB, the second go round, I was policy staff on the 2019 Charter Revision Commission. So I have been talking about ranked choice voting for a very long time, but to be quite honest with you, I did not know anything about it until 2018. So it's easy enough to learn and get used to, and I experienced that firsthand pretty recently too. So the three main goals for this training are to give you an overview of ranked choice voting in New York City. You will understand how ranked choice voting can benefit voters so that you know why you might want to use it. And then you'll also be able to find resources and answer any frequently asked questions that you may have about ranked choice voting. So just to get started with the most simple question, what is ranked choice voting? So ranked choice voting is a new way for voters to elect their representatives in city elections. I'm going to abbreviate it RCV going forward just for the sake of space and for my own sanity. But RCV allows voters to rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference instead of choosing just one. This gives voters more say in who wins, it increases civility, and it can lead to more diverse candidates. And I'll get into more detail about those 3 benefits later on in the presentation. They're based on research in other ranked choice voting jurisdictions, of which there are many. Who else uses ranked choice voting? A lot of different states and municipalities across the US. And it's also growing here too. So right now, 17 US cities, including San Francisco, Minneapolis, and Santa Fe, use ranked choice voting. Maine, the whole state of Maine, uses ranked choice voting to elect their state and federal representatives. So that's cool for Maine. And Alaska will soon as well, because 6 additional cities, including the whole state of Alaska, voted in 2020 to use ranked choice voting. And then lastly, depending on how you feel about the best picture winners of the last few years, this could be a huge selling point, or maybe it's not, but the Academy Awards also uses ranked choice voting to select their best picture winner. So Borough President Richards got into this. How did ranked choice voting get to New York City? In November 2019, almost 74% of voters voted yes on ballot question 1 to establish ranked choice voting in some local elections. It was put on the ballot by the 2019 Charter Revision Commission, and it's important to just know that this reform was approved by voters. And I'm a huge fan of maps, most people are. So I said almost 74% of voters voted yes on ballot question 1, and that was in all of New York City, but there were some areas with less support. So I'll just point those out for awareness here. For the most part, the colors that are like orange brown are voters who supported ranked choice voting ballot question by less than 50%. So it's just something for everyone's awareness. And this analysis was done by CUNY, so I'm just sharing their wealth of knowledge with you all. So before ranked choice voting, how did we vote for city offices? So we voted using something called single choice plurality elections in primary and special elections for the 5 city offices. And this is just a fancy way of saying that voters choose only one candidate for each office, and the candidate with the highest number of votes wins. So again, pre-2021, it's used in special primary and general elections. Voters will actually still use single choice elections for federal, state, and certain local offices like district attorney, and in general elections for city office. And the reason why that is a pretty complicated answer, but I'm more than willing to answer it in the FAQ, in the Q&A section if you folks want to know more. We also used runoff elections before 2021 for mayor, public advocate, and comptroller if no candidate received more than 40% of the total primary election vote. So the good thing to know is that ranked choice voting eliminates all runoff elections. It permits the voters who vote in the primary election to determine the winning candidate without having to return to vote 4 weeks later in a separate runoff election. So the great thing about eliminating runoffs is there are a couple of drawbacks to runoffs that were identified by people who wanted to use ranked choice voting to replace runoff elections. And so the three things that I'll point out are that runoffs have low turnout, they're expensive, and they don't allow full participation. So turnout in runoff elections is 35 to 65% lower than in the primary election. Every single one costs $20 million to run. It's a lot of money. And military and overseas voters don't have time to mail back their ballots in a lot of cases. And so their vote may not count, or they may not be able to participate in the runoff election. Okay, so this is a cheat sheet for ranked choice voting in New York City, because what I just told you is a little complicated. So ranked choice voting is going to be used in special elections, which are held anytime there is a vacancy in a city office, and they're open to all registered voters. It will also be used in primary elections, which are always held on the fourth Tuesday in June and are open to all voters registered to the political party that's having that primary election. But we're not like Maine or Alaska. We're not using ranked choice voting in general elections, which are also open to all registered voters and are always held on the first Tuesday in November. So this last part is important to know because it means that some ballots will have ranked choice and single choice elections. And these are the offices that will be using ranked choice versus single choice elections. So ranked choice voting will only be used to elect city offices, not federal or state. It will be used to elect all 5 city offices of mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and all 51 city council members. But it will not be used for federal or state races like president, Congress, or governor. And it will not be used in local races like district attorney and judgeships. So I'm going to say this again, some ballots will have RCV and single choice elections. I know that y'all in Queens just elected a DA, but in Manhattan, they will be nominating a DA in the primary election, and that will be a single choice election. But their mayor, public advocate, et cetera, city offices will be ranked choice voting. So they'll be on the same ballot. Okay, and the last thing to know is ranked choice voting was effective January 1st, 2021. So that means that the first 2 ranked choice voting elections are both taking place in Queens. Really exciting for Queens. And right now, folks are voting early in Council District 24. Election day is February 2nd for that race. And then Borough President Richards, of course, previewed this. Council District 31 special election is going to take place on February 23rd. After that, we have 2 additional special elections in the Bronx. Both of those are being held on March 23rd, and that's in districts 11 and 15. And then lastly, all folks who are registered to a political party having a primary election will be able to vote in the city primary on June 22nd. Okay, so you know exactly how ranked choice voting is set up to work in New York, but how does it actually work for you as the voter? So here are the steps for marking a ballot. And this is what a ballot looks like on the left-hand side. It's set up like a grid. Candidates' names are listed in each of the rows. And then at the top, you can see first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice, fifth choice. So the directions are you pick your first choice candidate and completely fill in the oval next to their name under the first column. If you have a second choice candidate, you fill in the oval next to their name under the second column. You can rank up to 5 candidates, but you can also still choose to vote for only one candidate if you prefer. We do want to encourage folks to rank as many candidates as they feel comfortable ranking or they feel like they have an opinion about, because it allows you to take full advantage of the ranked choice voting process, of course. We were really excited that the Board of Elections provided us with an actual sample ballot for the 24th Council special election. So if you're voting in that race, this is what your ballot will look like. These are the candidates' names and how the first, second, third, fourth, fifth columns will show up. But I will just note English and Spanish will be there for sure. Bengali depends on whether, which election district or assembly district you live in. But I thought this was a really cool thing to show you guys. And then there's two things that we just want to highlight for voters when you're filling out a ballot. Two things we want you to tell you not to do. So the first is do not give multiple candidates the same rank. This would invalidate your ballot. And the reason why is because if you do as the voter did in this example, you rank candidate B and candidate C both for number 1, and you fill in the oval for both of those candidates. It's not clear what candidate you intended to rank for, you intended to vote for rank 1. So this error would invalidate your ballot. The good thing is if you vote in person, the ballot scanner will spit your ballot back out and you will be told to complete a new one. So that's just something for folks to be aware of. Do not do this. And the second thing is do not rank a candidate more than once. This doesn't invalidate your ballot, but we do not recommend you do this. If you do, as the voter in this example did, vote for candidate B for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, this is virtually the same as just voting for candidate B for 1. There is no benefit for ranking your favorite candidate for multiple rankings. They don't get extra credit points for the number of times that you rank them. And in fact, it could lead to your ballot not being able to utilize ranked choice voting as it's intended. All right, so now I'm going to explain the counting process. And round 1 is really simple. All first choice votes are counted from every voter's ballot. If a candidate receives more than 50% of those votes, they win. So you can see in this example, candidate B has 54% of first choice votes. So candidate B wins. However, if no candidate gets more than 50% of first choice votes, and you can see in this example, all 4 candidates have less than 50% of first choice votes, counting then continues in rounds. In each round, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. So I'm going to explain this by walking through a single voter's example ballot on the left. This voter ranked candidate D as her first choice. You can see on the left the vote totals for all first choices. And candidate D also happens to have the fewest number of votes in this round. Candidate D only has 12% of the vote. So what that means is candidate D is eliminated in this round. The 12% of voters who chose candidate D have their vote moved to the next highest ranked candidate on each of their ballots. So this is really important. For our example voter, candidate C is ranked second, so her vote moves to candidate C. But not every voter ranked candidate C second. Some ranked candidate B or A, so their votes move to whomever they voted for next on each of their ballots. So you can see in the little arrows here, we're moving 12% of votes who voted for candidate D to candidate C, B, and A. That increases the vote totals for candidates A, B, and C. And you can see in this new totals that the orange votes, the 12% of orange votes, are tacked on to A, B, or C, depending on which of those voters voted for second. Okay, so I think you all see where this is going. And if you don't, please write into the QA box to ask a question. But in each round, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. So we repeat that process again. Again, our example voter ranked candidate C as her second choice. But candidate C now has the fewest number of votes in this round. Candidate C only has 24%, even after they got the second place votes from the last round. So candidate C is eliminated. The 24% of voters who chose candidate C in this round have their vote moved to the next highest ranked candidate on each of their ballots. So for our example voter, candidate B is ranked third. Her vote moves to candidate B. But again, not every voter ranked candidate B next. Some of those voters also voted for candidate A. So their votes move to whomever they ranked next on their ballot. And that increases the vote totals for our last 2 candidates. And the counting process is now over because there are 2 remaining candidates and candidate B wins with 58% of the vote. So all of this tabulation is happening on a computer, same as how election results are added up for single choice elections, obviously no one's moving the papers around unless there's a hand count. But there is just the added complexity of multiple rounds of shifting votes. You as a voter don't really need to be that concerned about that piece. You just fill out your ballot, and if your first choice candidate gets eliminated, your vote moves to your next choice candidate, and so on. Okay, so the main takeaways for voters, there's 4 of them. You can rank up to 5 candidates, but you do not need to rank a total of 5. You could rank only 3 candidates if you want to, or 2. It's up to you. If you rank 5 candidates, 5 votes do not get counted. You always only have 1 active vote. And that's what I said earlier. You don't get extra credit for ranking a candidate in more than 1 rank. That just means that you ranked them for first. If you prefer, you can still vote for just your first choice candidate. However, ranking other candidates does not harm your first choice. And ranking multiple candidates ensures that your vote will go towards your second, third, fourth, or fifth choice if your top choice is eliminated, which gives you more say in who wins. We saw in the example that our voter kept choosing the losing candidate in each round, but she was ultimately able to have her vote pass on to the winning candidate. So she participated in allowing that candidate to get enough votes to win. Okay, so this is the last piece you need to know. As we saw in 2020, the winner in some races won't be known on election night, so it's important to set expectations for when results might be known. It may take a week or longer to count all votes, since absentee ballots can be received up to 10 days after an election, and because you need to count all first choice votes in an election. We don't want folks who vote by absentee to be disenfranchised, so we want to make sure that all first choice votes are counted in order to determine if a ranked choice voting tabulation has to take place or not. Okay, so some folks are understandably cautious about ranked choice voting. This is a new system, and I frequently end up in a situation where I have to persuade voters that they may not want to just rank one candidate. They want to definitely rank as many candidates as they feel comfortable ranking. And so we have a couple of reasons to rank and ways that ranked choice voting benefits voters. So the first one, voters have more say in who gets elected. This tells voters that they want to participate and let them know that their vote matters. The second is candidates are more likely to appeal to a wider audience. So I found this fascinating. Our research showed that voters don't like negative campaigning, but they also love getting candidate mail and like specific outreach by candidates. And so what we've seen in other jurisdictions is ranked choice voting encourages candidates to appeal to a wider audience. And then the last part, voters elect more diverse candidates. So our research has shown that the diversity of New York City is really important to voters. They want representatives who resemble the population. And what we've seen in jurisdictions that implement ranked choice voting is they elect more diverse candidates than they did before. So just a little bit more detail on the you have more say in who gets elected piece. In ranked choice voting elections, even if your top choice does not win, you can still help choose who does win. And that's because your first choice candidate loses, but you still have your second, third, fourth, and fifth choice candidates. You can vote for your top choice first without worrying about who is likely to win. That means that voters don't have to vote strategically or decide between voting for their favorite candidate and the one most electable, because if their favorite candidate ultimately ends up losing, they have a second rank or a third rank that their vote can move to. For candidates are more likely to appeal to a wider audience. In ranked choice voting elections, candidates can't win only with the support of their base. So voters hear from more candidates who are not only campaigning for their first choice votes, but also second, third, etc. And they want to appeal to a wider audience. So as was mentioned earlier in the introduction, in other jurisdictions, this has led to more civility and less negativity between candidates. In some instances, like-minded candidates for the same office have even, quote, endorsed one another. And we're not quite there yet in New York, but we're getting there. Folks who are endorsing candidates for mayor have been saying, you know, I endorse this person for first, I endorse this person for second, this person for third, which is pretty cool. It's just a little bit different from how we're used to hearing politicians talk about each other. And then lastly, for voters elect more diverse candidates. In ranked choice voting cities, elected officials are more representative of the communities they serve. And I'll just give some examples. In its first year implementing ranked choice voting, Minneapolis elected its first 2 transgender council members. 7 cities that use ranked choice voting have achieved gender parity in their city legislature, which means that 50% or more of the legislative representatives in that city are women or identify as women. And in the 13 largest municipalities that use ranked choice voting, 6 have women mayors and 4 have Black, Latino, or Asian mayors. So in cities with ranked choice voting, more women candidates and women candidates of color get elected as well. And they're more likely to run too. And some of that has to do with the civility piece that I talked about earlier. But it's widely seen that ranked choice voting gives candidates more opportunity to win than single choice elections. Okay, so when will ranked choice voting be used? I previewed this a little bit earlier, but I do just want to highlight the important dates that are taking place. The Queen's special elections in February are open to all registered voters in council districts 24 and 31. The Bronx special elections in March are open to all registered voters in council districts 11 and 15. And then the primary election in June is open to all New Yorkers registered to a political party. And the political party registration deadline is February 14th, which thank God it's Valentine's Day because I almost always forget it. Okay, and then for folks who are like, where exactly is Council District 24? How do I know if I live there? This is a map. It was formerly a seat formerly held by Rory Lansman, and Queens District 31, of course, formerly held by Donovan Richards. The Bronx special elections in 11 and 15 are in the northwest corner of the Bronx. Again, those are on March 23rd. And the citywide primary elections, again, taking place on June 22nd, where anyone who's registered to a political party will be able to vote for mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and all 51 city council races. Okay, so these are the 3 links that I shared in the chat, and I just wanted to highlight them for you. The New York City Campaign Finance Board website is an amazing resource. We have a bunch of information related to ranked choice voting spelled out in really simple language. We also have a Train the Trainer presentation, which, if you can believe it, is longer than this one. If you thought at the end of this training, like, I could listen to Allie talk for an additional 25 minutes, sign up for the Train the Trainer. You will get a lot of valuable information about how to incorporate ranked choice voting into your Get Out the Vote campaign or your organization's email listserv about when elections are taking place, that sort of thing. And then this is really exciting too. The City Board of Elections just released a ranked choice voting video that is on YouTube. It's about, I think it's less than 2 minutes long, and it does a really good job of visualizing it in just a different way, how the votes get distributed. And then, as always, you can follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at NYC Votes. Okay, I included my contact information in the chat box as well, but it's aswadek@nyccfb.info. Do not hesitate to reach out.
Okay, Ali, thank you so much for that very detailed presentation, and we're going to now open up to Q&A. And our partners at the BP's office are going to help select the questions from those that you entered into the Q&A window. And we're going to do our best to get to as many questions as possible during the Q&A. So thank you. And we are going to turn it over to you all to ask us questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saeed. Thank you, Allie. That was such an informative presentation. And one question that we do have is whether you can send this via email, the presentation.
Yes, I would be more than happy to share this out to the Queensborough President's office, and then you folks can distribute it to the attendees if that works.
Thank you. Thanks so much. We'd like to open up questions for our community board members first. If there are any chairs or district managers, you can feel free to put your question in the Q&A box and unmute yourselves. And if not, we'll open it up to the public. I will say I'm pretty excited. I'm in District 24, and I know that I can go ahead and vote anytime. So I'll be doing that for the first time. And, you know, looking at the numbers across the country, New York State and New York City usually have some of the lowest participation, even in this last election. And so I hope that this will bring more people to the polls and that we exercise our vote. So I want to thank you for all the work you're doing around the civic education that we need to continue to spread throughout the borough and the city. All right, so I will call on Betty Leon, who has raised her hand. If you'd like to unmute yourself.
Hi. Are you hearing me?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, just want to ask, I'm from Community Board 14 in the Rockaways. Just want to ask you, I know you can vote, she says, for one person. Can you just vote for someone who just want to vote for rank 1 and 2? Is that possible? Would that interfere with your ballot if you just want to rank 1 and 2?
No, you can rank as many candidates as you want to, up to 5, of course.
Okay.
And if there's only 3 candidates running, of course you can't rank 5 of them.
Right.
So you're also limited by the number of candidates running, but it's up to the voter. And we've been encouraging folks to rank as many candidates as they feel comfortable. Maybe you have a first choice, a second choice, and a third choice, and that's it. That's
Right.
also fine.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Great question. Any others? And if not, we'll go to the Q&A box. Any others from the public that you would like to ask your question? If not, I can read them. All right, feel free to raise your hand as well. So I'll work backwards here. Curious, someone is curious as to whether you can write in a candidate.
Yes, you can write in a candidate and rank them for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you want to rank them.
Okay.
That's a good question, though. I forgot to highlight that on the sample ballot.
Are you aware of this also happening at the state level? Is there a push for reform there?
I have not heard that. However, this week is actually a ranked choice voting week of action, and people have been popping up to support ranked choice voting at the federal level, which I think is really interesting. So I think that we're kind of, I don't want to say we're at the forefront from an innovation perspective, but this is definitely a conversation that a bunch of folks are having. And it's really interesting that, you know, New York City gets to be the laboratory in that sense.
As we are for so many things, right?
Yeah,
we're always leading. We're always looking to lead.
exactly.
So Judith Exler has another question about what if a candidate is listed on more than one political party line?
I love this question, Judith, because in my presentation, I said that we are not using ranked choice voting in general elections. And that is the reason why, because we have something called fusion voting in New York State. And that allows a candidate to appear under more than one party. How would you count that in a ranked choice voting election? It's just not compatible. And so we are not using ranked choice voting in general elections for any offices.
Thank you. Can you also repeat which districts are engaged in early voting at this time?
Yes, your district, District 24, which is in kind of central Queens, I would say, is currently doing early voting right now. Maybe not right now, although they may have been open until 6 p.m. The hours are, they're different every day, but you can go to the Board of Elections website, vote.nyc or voting.nyc to see the early voting times.
So there's a question about not having a first choice, but what if you wanted to vote for second, third, or fourth?
I love this question too. This is a cheeky question. So the way that it works is your votes would just move up one. The ballot would be recognized your second choice would be recognized as your first choice. Your third choice would be recognized as your second choice, because it's just your preference for who to select, basically. So it will always assume your highest ranked candidate is your highest choice.
All right, thank you. And so what if a candidate reaches the 50% threshold? Will it stop the voting transfer process?
So if a candidate reaches the 50% threshold, greater than 50%, so technically it's 50% of who voted plus one voter. If a candidate gets that many votes in the first round, they're the winner. No one else can get any more votes than that candidate. But after that takes place, the way that the system is set up in New York City is all of the votes are distributed until just two candidates remain. And the reason why it was set up that way is so that voters would be encouraged to rank. There's 5 rankings available, and you could express your whole ballot as fully as possible. So what happens is that when there are 2 candidates remaining, someone will have 50% of the vote, but we're going to run it down to those 2 candidates.
That makes sense. So there's some concern that this approach will lead to fringe candidates getting elected. And what do you say to those who are concerned about that happening? That are maybe running on just one issue and not necessarily a larger platform, but have a lot of strong support just on a single issue.
It's a really good point. However, ranked choice voting encourages broader consensus support than does plurality elections. So if you think about it, if enough candidates are running, someone who's considered fringe or is a single issue candidate could actually end up winning if it's a plurality election where you just need to get, there's some instances where folks have won with 14% or 17% of the vote. That means that, if you're winning with 15% of the vote, 85% of the voters who turned out didn't vote for you. That's a plurality election. And so I would think that a fringe candidate winning would actually happen more often under plurality elections. And we didn't really see that happen that often then either, just mathematically. But because ranked choice voting requires a majority, I'm not that concerned with that. And we've actually seen the opposite in most places that have implemented it. But that's a really good question.
And so we have another question about whether we see ranked choice voting eventually going towards a system where there will not have a political affiliation requirement. And then I have a follow-up question regarding that. Is that done already with the special elections because of the way that they have to be, quickly marked on the calendar?
Yeah, so you're right. In special elections, there is no political party affiliation. You make up your own party name, which is really fun. Some of them are very creative. Of course, like within the bounds of acceptable language. So in special elections, every voter can
vote
vote
on the ballots, right? Right, for the 20.
Yes, it appears underneath their names. It's actually it's very fun. But the way that special elections work is anybody who lives in that district who's a registered voter can vote in that race. You don't have to be affiliated with a political party. The primary elections are closed to members of the political party. And I will say that I'm not sure what this will lead to, but most places that have implemented ranked choice voting, in fact, most cities in this country don't have primary elections. We're the first ones that are going to use it for primary elections. So that's another thing that's kind of exciting.
It really is. It really is. So I think we're going to be wrapping up soon. So please share any questions if you have any in the Q&A box. There's a lot of interest in learning more about raising public awareness and how we can help with the trainings. Do you have any information on how the folks here can help spread the word and become trained to be trainers?
Yeah, that's the whole philosophy behind our Train the Trainer presentation. It's giving you so much information that you can get asked questions like, like you're doing to me right now, and you actually have the answers, like you're empowered to answer and come up with the solutions that people have questions or they're confused about. So I would recommend going to the Campaign Finance Board's website. It's www.nyccfb.info/RCV training. And you can sign up there for our RCV trainings. If you go to our website, it's also in the at the very top in the banner. You can click a link there and get to it. And the whole idea behind the Train the Trainer presentation is that this is a huge city. We're going to need all hands on deck to get folks educated, to make sure that we reach as many voters as possible. And in a lot of cases, that means that community groups, your church, your PTA, those are the types of places where people congregate. And I know we're all meeting on Zoom nowadays, but that's the most effective way to share information is through a trusted resource. So we make all of our training information publicly available to folks. The training that I just gave tonight, you can take it and you can customize it and you can give it on your own too.
That's great. That's great. There's another question about whether this particular presentation will be available later for viewing.
I believe it's being recorded. I honestly am not 100% sure.
I know that we're on YouTube Live, so we might
There
be
you go.
able to get that information to you in the chat, someone from our tech team, because I think we may have a channel. And so there's also not so much a question, but more of a suggestion that's about including information on requesting absentee ballots, perhaps on these trainings.
Yeah, speaking of, today is the last day to request an absentee ballot in District 24. So thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah, I can include more voting deadlines as well in the follow-up email if there is one after this.
Okay, that's great. And last question I think that we have for the evening is there a reason why the district attorneys aren't part of the ranked choice voting process?
Yeah, I got asked this question so often that I actually did kind of like a deep dive research into this. So district attorneys are not city offices. They're not governed in the New York City Charter. So we don't have the power through the home rule law to establish how those races get elected. It's actually a state office. It's a county office that is administered by state election law. So for all of you out there, I just gave you probably too much information, but I was fascinated by that.
You and seems a few others too. So
yeah.
Thanks for that's interesting. Some to think about because the borough is also a county,
Yep.
right? And we can't forget that. So, well, I wanted to thank everyone for joining today and thank Dr. Saeed. Thank you so much, Ali. We do have the YouTube Live in case you forgot or were able to join late. We have the link because it was recorded. It should be available on our channel. And I want to encourage everyone to tell your family and your friends, especially if they're in District 24 and in District 31, to please go out and get out the vote. This is your time to make a mark and make history. This is the first time that this is happening, as we hear it at a primary level, at a city level. And we want to get our numbers up in New York. We're, unfortunately have been for decades just depressed in our level of participation in this very important process that, we should be more engaged in to make the decisions for our futures and our families' futures. And so on behalf of the Borough President and the Borough President's Office, we'd like to say thank you again. And please feel free to reach out if we could be helpful and providing any more information. And we look forward to having more engagement with you at CFB. And I wish everyone